What should you say in a mound visit if your pitcher's slider or curveball, whatever their primary breaking ball is hanging up in the zone and is soft breaking and kind of flat? What should you say in a mound visit if this is what you're seeing from your pitcher? So this is one of the harder problems to solve as a pitching coach, is how to get your pitcher's secondary stuff back on track, right? Because you can't throw the curveball for them, you can't throw the slider for them, and especially when everything is up in the zone, whether it's eye level, chest level, or it just has no bite. They can't get it down the dirt if they need a swing and miss, or they can't even really throw it into the strike zone where they can get those called strikes and maybe a swing and miss. When you see a lot of those really soft breaking, high in the zone hangers, typically there's a couple consistent patterns. So let's talk about the physical stuff first. Number one, it's often that they're throwing the pitch early. And what I mean by that is it's not so much release point, although that is a piece of it. It's in their head when they try to throw that curveball. So basically, when I'm roaring down the mound, everything is good. I'm rotating, and I'm relaxing, and then basically the pitch that's in my hand is neutral. I have my grip, right? I got my curveball grip, but it hasn't become a pitch yet until I start to move towards the plate, and that's when it goes from sort of neutral to like, now it's a curveball, now it's a slider, now it's a changeup. When they get that curveball grip or that slider grip, and early in the delivery, they start thinking, now it's a curveball, and they start to try to think about throwing that curveball early versus waiting and staying relaxed and then getting it late. That's when that pitch goes up, because they start to accelerate it too soon. They tense up, often their front shoulder flies open, and now they're here, and that ball goes up, and it never has a chance to bite and get into the strike zone. So what should you say in a visit when that's what you see and you want to, explain that to your pitcher? Basically say, look, when we're throwing our curveball, when we're throwing our slider, right now I see you tensing up and you're trying to throw when it's still behind your body. I need you to relax, stay relaxed and wait to the very end. Then that's when you pull the string. That's when that curveball or that slider becomes that pitch that we want, right? That's when snapping it off isn't necessarily the best term, but I think that is a good baseball term. Basically, I say, hey, stay relaxed till the very end. That's when you snap it off, right? As a pitching coach, that's one of the biggest pieces of it. The other physical thing is over gripping, and this is really just a mental thing. They start to think too much. I got to throw the nastiest slider I've ever thrown, so they get a little more tense in their grip, and maybe they over grip it. They're too tight. They get a little bit of tension flowing through their arm, and this is really, it's more of a mental thing than anything else, right? So yes, the tension in the grip, the tension in their arm, whatever it is, that is a manifestation of, I'm nervous, I don't want to fail, I want to throw the best curveball I've ever thrown, the best slider that I've ever thrown, and because they're trying too hard, they tense up, and when you're tense at all, everything, your wrist is tight, and everything slides out instead of really being spun out the way we want it to. So one of the biggest tools when pitchers are not throwing their breaking ball well and everything's hanging up, it's typically getting stuck in their hand, they're over gripping it, and they're trying to throw the pitch too soon, and they're tense. Those are the main things that keep breaking balls high and floating in the zone. They all kind of come from the same thing. Again, what we already talked about is relaxing and then snapping it at the end, but also take a deep breath before each pitch. Make sure you have this process, take a deep breath, lock on the mitt, don't worry about the hitter. The more we can remind our pitchers that the hitter is completely beyond their control and all they really are out here to do is to execute a pitch as best they can. They can't control the hitter swinging and hitting a home run or swinging and missing or taking or fouling it off. They can't control any of that. So some dialogue in that is important. Just reminding them that, hey, all I need you to do is when you pick a curveball, lock your eyes on the mitt, take that deep breath, let your shoulders slump, and then let your body do what it knows how to do. Don't worry about the hitter. Just visualize the pitch, where it's going to start and where it's going to end. And that's another piece of this conversation, is sometimes pitchers don't really know how to start the pitch, where to start the pitch, how to do that. And basically what we do is using our visual focal point. So if I'm going to throw a curveball, say my curveball breaks, this far. If I want it to end up at my belt, I want to visually think about starting that curveball right here, because if I start it right at my shirt logo or my microphone right here, I know that if it has that break, it's going to end up on my belt. If I want it to break to my knee, I'm going to have to start it at my belt line, and if I start it there, now I break it down towards my knee. That's how really good pitchers decide where they're going to start and how the breaking ball is going to end. A lot of times pitchers just vaguely look at the plate and they hope that their slider ends up where it's supposed to go. We don't want to rely on just hope and desperation. We want to say, I know that if I start this slider at the hitter's elbow, it's going to break back over the middle of the plate. I know if I start this slider at my catcher's kneecap, it's going to break into the dirt when I want to swing and miss. So you can remind them of that. So, hey, if we need to get this pitch down the zone and we need to bounce it, make sure you're not staring at the mitt. I want you to stare at the catcher's kneecap. Stare at the catcher's kneecap, and that's where you start that slider. Or stare at the catcher's face mask, and that's where you catch that curveball so that it breaks into his mitt for a called strike. So helping them get back to a visual focal point is helpful because A, that's how good pitchers actually throw these pitches where they want it, and B, it's something else to focus on rather than their nervousness, rather than their visualization of the hitter crushing it into the gap. Now if they have something else to visualize, that's really positive because it blocks out a lot of that other stuff. And one more mechanical item that's important to watch, if they're not mentally struggling, like everything's going fine up here, everywhere else, a lot of times it's just the front shoulder. So with pitchers, if they're here long and they move towards the plate with their chest, now the arm is going to be delivered more towards the plate and it's going to end up right where it needs to be. But a lot of times, especially with younger pitchers, their glove arm will start to fly open too soon. They'll start to yank out. And what happens when they do that is they end up leaving this arm behind. It becomes late. And when your arm is late to getting where it needs to be to accelerate the ball, that's when stuff goes up. Fastballs, changeups, curveballs, sliders, all of it. So if everything's consistently up in the zone with their breaking ball, especially if it's arm side and up, watch their front shoulder. See if you can see, okay, look like they're really tugging themselves open early, and that's why that curveball is hanging late. So when you go out there for a mound visit, say, hey, I want you to look down the shoulder a little bit longer, try to see this as long as you can, and then take your chin and your chest right to the catcher's mitt. That's going to help them get their hand more to the front of the ball so they can get that breaking ball back into the zone. If you have any questions about this, leave me a comment below, and I'll see you here in the next video.